A man named Daniel Reyes died in his sleep in 2018 at age 81. His neighbors described him as the guy who mowed his own lawn, drove a truck older than his grandkids, and clipped coupons at the grocery store on Tuesdays. When his estate was finally settled, it came out to just under $4 million, built one boring paycheck at a time over 50 years, mostly sitting untouched in index funds nobody ever saw him check. 3 streets over, a couple filed for bankruptcy that same year. They'd just gotten back from Santorini. Their driveway had a car worth more than Daniel's house. Here's what nobody tells you about money. The version of wealthy you can actually see is almost never the real thing. And once you understand why, you'll never look at a driveway the same way again. Every dollar spent trying to look wealthy is a dollar pulled out of the only thing that actually builds wealth: time, left alone to grow. Picture compounding like a hill covered in snow. Push a snowball down it, and for the first stretch, almost nothing happens. It just looks small and slow and honestly a little pointless. But the ones who leave it alone long enough eventually can't stop it, even if they tried. Most people never get there, not because the snowball doesn't work, but because they keep running down the hill to grab it and turn it into a new coat. Daniel wasn't smarter than his neighbors. He wasn't luckier either. He just ran 7 quiet habits for 50 straight years while everyone around him was busy running one flashy habit for one afternoon at a time. Let's go through what he actually did. When Daniel got a raise in his 30s, he didn't upgrade his truck. He hired a kid down the street to mow the lawn and used the extra 2 hours a week to pick up part-time bookkeeping work on the side. Most people spend a raise on things that cost money forever after. Daniel spent his on time, which is the only thing that can be reinvested into more money. A nicer truck starts losing value the day you drive it home. An extra 2 hours a week used well compounds for decades. So the question worth asking before any purchase isn't, can I afford this? It's simpler than that. Does this buy me time, or does it just cost me more of it later? Daniel's entire portfolio was 3 index funds and a rental duplex he bought in 1987 and never sold. That's it. No hot tips, no day trading, no crypto wallet. Research on investor behavior has consistently found that the average individual investor underperforms the very funds they're invested in, largely because they buy in on excitement and sell in a panic, not because the strategy failed, but because the person couldn't leave it alone. Daniel's edge wasn't picking winners. It was refusing to fiddle with anything that was already working. The duplex mattered for a different reason. A car loses value the second you drive it off the lot. A rental property, a stake in a small business, a skill you can sell, these tend to be worth more in 10 years than they are today. Daniel's test before buying anything big was simple. Will this still be worth something later, or will I just be explaining why I bought it? Daniel kept a single spreadsheet, updated every January, with exactly one number on it: his net worth. Not his neighbors, not what they'd guess, just his own, tracked in private for 50 years. That number was the only scoreboard that mattered to him, and it's worth noticing what it wasn't measuring. Not the truck, not the house, not anything anyone else could glance at and judge. To Daniel, money was never really about what it announced to the neighborhood. It was about what it eventually let him say no to: a boss, an obligation, a Tuesday he didn't want to spend at work. That's the part of wealth you can't photograph, and it's exactly why almost nobody chases it on purpose. Willpower is a bad long-term strategy. It's strong on Monday and gone by Friday. Daniel knew this about himself, so he barely relied on it. His savings moved out of his paycheck automatically, before he ever saw the number. And for anything that wasn't automatic, anything that showed up as a sudden want, he ran it through a rule instead of a decision. Wait 72 hours, then decide. Most of the time, by hour 72, He'd already forgotten what he wanted to buy. The two habits work together. Automation handles the money he never has to think about. The pause handles the money he does. Between them, there's almost nothing left for impulse to work with. Here's a habit almost nobody frames this way. Attention is a form of currency, and there's an entire industry built to spend it for you before you notice it's gone. Daniel wasn't anti-technology. He read the newspaper daily and later switched to a tablet. But he was ruthless about what got to hold his attention for more than a few minutes, because he understood something most people don't. Every hour spent scrolling is an hour that isn't going toward the side income, the research, the read that actually moves the number on his private spreadsheet. Attention spent carelessly doesn't just waste time. It quietly steals from compounding, the same way an unnecessary purchase does. To everyone in the neighborhood, Daniel was just a retired guy with a lawn to mow. Nobody saw the other version of him, the one negotiating his property tax assessment every single year, the one who read his brokerage statements line by line, the one who called 3 contractors for every home repair instead of one. That gap between the calm version people saw and the disciplined version nobody did is most of what this entire video is actually about. Wealth that's visible tends to be wealth that got spent proving itself. Wealth that lasts tends to belong to people who stopped needing anyone to see it. Daniel's youngest grandchild was 3 years old when he died. She'll never really remember him. But the trust he set up will pay for a chunk of her college, and probably her kids' college too, assuming the family doesn't touch the principal, which was the one condition he was firm about. Somewhere in his 40s, Daniel stopped asking whether a decision would pay off by Friday and started asking whether it would still matter in 50 years. That single shift in the question changes almost every financial decision underneath it, because a Friday-sized question and a 50-year-sized question rarely have the same answer. If any part of Daniel's story sounds like the opposite of how you were taught to think about money, stick around, because the ending changes how you'll see every driveway you drive past for the rest of your life. And if you want more of this, calm and unglamorous and actually useful, subscribing is the easiest way to see the next one. Here's what almost nobody catches until it's too late. The version of wealthy you can see and the version that's actually real are frequently opposites. The flashy version rents its appearance one purchase at a time,